Storytelling. It's an important part of marketing, as I'm sure you've been told. But on a practical sense, what does that actually mean? What stories should you be telling and why? That's what we're exploring in today's episode as we welcome Shah Dixon back to the podcast, the founder of Loudmouth Content and a content marketing strategist. Hi, I'm Catherine Erdley. I'm the founder of the Resilient Retail Club, which is my membership group done for you services and one-to-one services for product businesses. You can find out more at resilientretailclub.com, and I'm also your host of episode number 252 of the Resilient Retail Game Plan podcast. Welcome to the Resilient Retail Game Plan, a podcast for anyone wanting to start, grow or scale a profitable creative product business with me, Catherine Erdley. The Resilient Retail Game Plan is a podcast dedicated to one thing, breaking down the concepts and tools that I've gathered from 20 years in the retail industry and showing you how you can use them in your business. This is the real nuts and bolts of running a successful product business, broken down in an easy, accessible way. This is not a podcast about learning how to make your business look good. It's the tools and techniques that will make you and your business feel good. Confidently plan, launch and manage your products, and feel in control of your sales numbers and cash flow to help you build a resilient retail business. Shah, welcome back to the podcast. It's so good to have you back with us again. But for anyone who didn't hear your previous episode, do you want to start by introducing yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, I'm Shah and I'm the founder of Loudmouth Content. And I spent sort of 20 years of my career working for big brands, a lot of them retailers, places like June, New Look, Waitrose, Simple. I was head of marketing at June for 4 years and lead copywriter at Expedia for 6.5 years. And then I discovered this small business world and I was just like, I want in. I was absolutely obsessed. So I actually made a move to go and start my own business, taking all of that marketing, content, insight and knowledge, bottle it all up. And now I share all my secrets with small business owners to help make content and marketing much more calm and considered and impactful and less chaotic, because we all know content can be wild. So yeah, that's kind of what I do these days.
Amazing. And it's just fantastic to talk to you about marketing because you're such an expert, you're such deep industry knowledge. And that's what I love about everything you talk about is very much rooted in, like you say, 2 decades of marketing know-how. So I'm really excited to get into our conversation today, which is all about storytelling. And I wanted to delve into it because I think this is something you do really well. And it's probably one of those things that I know that I always see it, people saying, oh, it's important to do your storytelling for your business. And I think that's great. But I think often it can be one of those concepts that sounds a bit vague and, okay, well, what does that actually mean on a practical level? So that's what I wanted to jump into. But just set the scene, like, what are your thoughts about storytelling and why do you think it's so important particularly for small product businesses?
Ultimately, it's what's going to set you apart, right? Like how often do we hear from small business owners like, oh, there's millions of people selling candles, or there's millions of people doing this, or, someone else has just opened up and they're selling something similar to me. When you have a story, like that is your main differentiator. That's the thing that's going to set you apart. And our brains are hardwired to exist in story form. So like if you think about going out with your mates at the weekend, right, you're not sitting around talking about facts and figures. You're telling stories, something funny that happened with the kids or something that happened at work, whatever. That's how we make sense of the world. And it's what makes things memorable. And so when we tell stories and we don't just tell facts and figures and features and stuff in our businesses, people are way less and way more likely to remember them. Mm-hmm. It's literally attached to the dopamine that a story gives off in your brain. So marketing's all about being remembered, right? Being top of mind when people are coming to buy something that you sell. That is a huge power behind storytelling for that. It's also a massive advantage over the big brands because they don't get to tell these stories like the small business guys do. And it's so powerful that we have that power over those brands because they don't often have those stories to tell. That's a great advantage. Mm-hmm. And it really just builds connection and trust, that humanizing of the brand. Small business especially, people buy from people, and that's so important to build that connection and trust, especially as we're going into this age of ChatGPT and AI and all of this sort of stuff, fact figures, all of this stuff is becoming, it's like flattening out the landscape of content and stuff. But actually, what ChatGPT can't really do is that human side, the storytelling. So that is where you'll start to come into your own. And I don't know if you've seen it, but on social media, I'm seeing this huge wave right now where storytelling is getting even bigger than it has been before. And it's really going down that route. And I'm wondering if it is because there's so much about ChatGPT and stuff that actually people are craving that human side. So yeah, so much power behind these stories.
It's such a great point. I really agree with you in terms of, I always think that it's always like pendulum swings, isn't it? So if the pendulum's going to swing to, you can have ChatGPT, like you say, write any amount of know-how or to do top tips or anything like that. But, you know, if you've got a story to tell and you can tell it in a human way, that people are craving, you can really start to pick up on the kind of the generic, super generic AI text. And I think people do want that. Oh, that's a bit different. That's a bit quirky. That's a bit, doesn't feel like something that came out of ChatGPT. Because you're right, it does level the playing field, but it is also sort of rather flat in itself as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
That I completely agree. And isn't it, I feel like I've read before that your brain almost has this, it's like inbuilt tension. If someone says, oh, you never guess what happened the next day, the other day, and then they don't tell you, it's like your brain kind of gets really stressed out because it's like,
yeah,
what happened?
Yeah, and it really does, like I mentioned before, about like dopamine and oxytocin and all these chemicals that are literally released in the brain when you have these stories and, like you say, cliffhangers and stuff. It changes the chemicals of our brain, which is, you know, just goes to show how powerful storytelling can be. It's like immense.
So going back to the point I made at the beginning about storytelling, one of those concepts, sounds great, but, you know, lots of people struggle with, what do they actually say in their content and how can they use storytelling? Because obviously you want to make connection, but ultimately it's about sales. But, you know, how can storytelling help with that kind of move to make the content feel much more like a conversation and less like a sales pitch?
Yeah, totally. And it's by having conversations, which sounds like too simple, but I think like we often hear about content pillars and that kind of thing. And I think sometimes when you almost go down that too strategic of a route, you almost lose a bit of the soul. So you're now thinking like, right, content themes, content topics, what should I say? But you're actually, if you flip that around, and this is how I always approach it with my own small business owners that I work with, I get them to think of the conversations they want to be having with their community right now. And instantly it flips the whole scenario. And instead of thinking like, right, what can I talk about? What idea can I think of to talk about? You're now just having quite natural conversations. What are those conversations that you want to start? What are those conversations you want to be a part of? And that just, it literally just changes where you're starting from. And it's just way more natural and authentic and powerful. And it is then a conversation rather than like you're saying, like 3 top tips. So literally by having those conversations, and I think we often get this block, don't we, that if we had a physical store and someone came in and they didn't know anything about our brand, we would have a conversation. We'd be telling them this top line stuff, right? About, you know, very top line, what we're all about. If someone had bought 1 million times before and they came back in, the conversation would be very different. But when we get online in this digital space, we feel that that doesn't exist anymore. We've got to think of all these things to say. But actually, if you just go back to that, if this was a real life situation, what would I say? Again, going back to conversation, it's flipping it again. And you can then start to think, right, I need to be having conversations like I would for people that don't know me. I need to be having conversations with people that do. And actually, what can I now be recommending to them now that they've bought this or what have you? So, you know, thinking about that in real life situation and just applying it to digital, because we're still people. There's just a screen between us.
That's such a good point. Yeah, I love that. So when you say think about the conversations, you think like, what would you want to tell them about your business? What would you tell them how it started, what you believe in?
Yeah.
Where your products come from?
Yeah. Storytelling can be any of it, all of it. And I think when I speak to small business owners, they often don't feel like they've got a story to tell. Like it's not, they don't have this great origin story or what have you. But most people don't have their own business, and the stuff that we're doing, you guys are doing that, behind the scenes day to day is wild for most people. And there's so much magic in that mundane. That's the reason why like reality TV is so popular, because people just love to peer into other people's lives and see what they're up to. Thinking about your personal journey, and no, you don't have to share it all. You can choose which, slice of that journey you share. Your brand story, like you mentioned, so how you chose your brand name, or why you started the business, or who has been your biggest inspiration, all of those kind of questions. Even like customer stories. Someone came into our store, or someone messaged online and told us they'd worn this to met their future partner, or whatever it might be. Like all of these stories are valid pieces of content and will humanize your brand and bring it to life, down to, putting your collection together, mood boards, or how you curate your collection. There's so much goodness in those little details. So yes, all of this stuff counts and can be broken down into pieces of content.
That's such a great point. You said there's magic in the mundane. It's like, I remember having this conversation with somebody many years ago who was a baby brand, and she said exactly like you said, oh, I don't really have a story. And she said, it's super boring as well. I just have my baby on my sling and I'm sewing like most of the day. And I was like, yeah, but you say that, but if you were someone who had a baby in a sling, you'd probably be fascinated that you were managing to run your business with a baby, and they would be completely fascinated to see what you're up to. And it's such a good point about reality TV, that people just love. There's so much. I mean, almost every aspect of life has got like a reality TV show now.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. And you think of something like Gogglebox, people are literally watching people watch TV. Like the concept of it is wild, but we are so fascinated. Like I've got this, like weird thing when I walk down the street at night. I always love peering into people's houses and thinking, they're like the decoration. I just love it. I find it so fascinating. People just love a peek into other people's lives and seeing how they do things differently or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think just don't overlook those little things, because they're all valid. They're all, great things that you could be talking about.
It's funny because I was just thinking, my mum always says that. She's like, oh, I love this time of night. It's when people have turned their lights on and they haven't drawn their curtains yet.
Yeah, well, actually, I remember Habitat did an amazing campaign years ago about like this sort of like voyeur campaign where I'm glad to know that I'm not alone. But yeah, it was this whole thing that everyone's like looking into each other's house because they find it so fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? I was thinking about Ramona, who runs Rani & Co. jewelry brand. She does a lot on TikTok, Instagram as well. And she just tells stories all the time. And it's really fascinating because, like you say, she had one where it was like, she just does like little snippets from her day. So she had one where it was, oh, I've got this order and I'm pretty sure it's a competitor who's ordered it, but like, this is what they've ordered. She didn't say who or what, but it was just like one of those things, like a small business moment. Or that she realised she was packing an order and somebody had ordered 14 times. Yeah, she's just telling the story about running her business. It's almost like that document, don't create, right? Like
100%. And I think, we often think we've got to dream up these content ideas and like think of, what we're going to talk about. But actually, especially when I speak to people who are feeling overwhelmed or they don't know what to say or they're having a creative block, that's exactly what I say. Like, document, don't create. Focus on what you're already doing, because also then you don't have to spend extra time thinking of things to say, putting it together. You'll literally, get your tripod or just, stick it up against the wall as you're working, put it on a time lapse or whatever, and just show people what you're working on. Because also, like, if you're showing something you're creating, you're also creating hype for that product. People are starting to think like, oh, what's that? Oh, that's a cool fabric, or that's a cool design. And that in itself becomes sales content essentially, but in a very non-salesy way. And, just sharing those stories that we have day to day, like what you're doing or anything that happened in the business, or even getting people like into part of making that story. So getting people involved in decisions like, oh, I don't know whether to choose this fabric or this one. What do you think? Put it as a poll on stories. But instead of thinking like, oh, I'm going to think of a poll, what should I do? Use your audience to actually help you with the decisions that you genuinely have in your business.
Yeah.
And then actually your business is getting all this amazing data from people, and it's in itself creating its own content. So yeah, anything, even just share what you're doing, sharing your journey. Something that I like to get people to do as well is write down their business journey, but almost like do it line by line. So, you know, like start at the start, you know, I always struggled finding a product that did this. So I thought maybe I could be part of that solution. Or, you know, my mum gave me this really great idea one day, or I read this quote that said, and it really sparked something in me. Breaking down your story line by line is a really great way of now having, you've got this big stash. So you could be just like, maybe one of those things is like, I was really inspired by a friend who did such and such. You can then use that as a piece of content. So if you can keep a list of, you know, things that happen in your, even at the end of the day, just write down one thing that happened today. And you know, next time you think like, oh God, because you know what it's like. You go to write an email and you think, I'd like to start this with a bit of a story, but can't think of a single thing. You're staring at a blank screen.
Yeah.
If you've got this little stash of things that, because it doesn't have to be something you literally did today. Like I think people sometimes get hung up on, oh, like, I didn't actually do that today. But that's okay. Like it doesn't matter. You did it. But if you've got this little stash of things that you've done, just little one-liners about a decision you were trying to make, or maybe you were trying to get the cut of something and you just couldn't do it and you were struggling, you know, doing the development, or you were trying to curate your collection, whatever it might be, just writing down these little things. And then you've always got this stash of stories to go back to, and these little snippets that you can then bring into your content. And it just makes it so much easier when you come to much easier.
Yeah. And that's such a great point as well, because also I think that the one thing that I really find that small business owners don't do enough of is that they put absolutely everything, heart and soul, into selecting their products, whether they're curating them or whether they're creating them. So whether they're searching around for suppliers who meet all of their criteria, or they're working with a factory, or they're making the product themselves. But they spend hours and hours, you know, researching, right? Who are they using biodegradable plastic film, for example, or not plastic, but you know what I mean? Like the film, is it cornstarch based, or can I get them to reduce their packaging? Or they'll be really obsessed with the quality of the ingredients. So they'll spend absolutely hours testing, you know, hundreds of different base oils, carrier oils, to make sure they get the one that's absolutely the best that it can be and has the biggest impact. And they'll have all of these reasons for all of doing all of these things, which also then plays into the price, right? You know, often people have to charge a certain amount of money for things because they've made all of these incredible decisions, and yet then they just don't ever say anything about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that I talk about a lot, actually. It's this idea of silent value. And every time that we are sharing this, and this is why sharing behind the scenes stuff is so important, because every time, like you say, oh, you know, I got this prototype, but it just wasn't good enough. And I'm going back again. I'm now on prototype 23. That is sowing in the silent value to say, oh my God, they're going to the end of the earth to make sure that this product is perfect. Or you, like you saying about packaging, it's not just like, oh, we're a sustainable brand. Yes, you could say that, but actually, you know, what are all the stories behind that? Like you say, making sure that our suppliers are this, and today we're going to meet with someone and this is our criteria. And then, like you say, when it comes to the point of them buying, there's no justification of the price. They can clearly see, they have subconsciously taken in all of these little details to see all the time, the effort, the care, attention, all the details that goes on behind what you're creating. You now have this huge point of difference versus big brands stuck in a factory, whatever. You're sharing, you're showing all of this silent value through your stories that makes it the easiest decision to make when they come to buy. They have all of this trust. They know that it's great quality. Yeah. And you're doing that all by these little snippets of stories. So sometimes, you know, even if a post totally flops and you're feeling downhearted, like know that that's still subconsciously going in, even if no one's necessarily engaged with that piece of content, whatever. It's all like this mosaic that builds up this bigger picture that gives people this confidence to buy over time, and that they understand the prices, they understand the quality without you having to necessarily say a word. It's just all coming through the back of these stories.
Yeah, completely. And again, like independent retailers who will have really strict criteria, and they'll be like, oh, I couldn't find another perfume brand that met like tick, 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 tick. And like you say, they might say, oh, we're a sustainable lifestyle store, but nowhere does it say we've spent 6,000 hours researching. So you know that this is free of parabens and microplastics and, you know, like so on and so forth. going back to what you said about the magic in the mundane, people tend to think that just because they've done something or they've spent a lot of time and effort on something, that it's maybe everybody knows about it as well. They just think, oh, well, everyone must know that's what we do. But do they?
No, and you're right. I think, we need to, or they might have mentioned it once. And these are the stories as well, like, don't feel like just because you've told this story once, you can't tell it again. These are the stories. We need a set of brand stories that we tell on repeat, because again, it's going back to this repetition, recognition, people remembering you, and you having these stories that you can go back to time and time again. And we should be repeating these stories. Just because it happened a year ago doesn't mean we can't talk about it today. We should be, carrying on with these stories, because then they're going to be remembered much more than if we, mention it one time. So yeah, absolutely. Keep telling those stories, keep telling different parts of those stories, and it all does add up into something like pretty magical.
So if you're listening to this podcast and you think, okay, Char, I get it, I'm going to do more stories. Maybe then you can start collecting your kind of content bank and your line by line. I love that idea of going line by line through your business origin story. But let's say you just sit there and you're thinking, okay, well, how do I start weaving it in? Is it like everything has to be a story, or you just start with one a week, or what's your kind of best way to get started?
So best way to get started is just go and do that. Like I said, that line by line, go and just write down a few, things that you can talk about in your business. And then just think, like, the easiest thing is to just document today, right? So what happened, or, this week, just think of like something this week that you can talk about, and just take a picture of it in your stories and just say, something like today's plans, working on X, that it can literally be that simple. And, if you think of one idea like that, just maybe think, right, if I could turn it into a story, maybe I could turn it into a carousel, maybe I could turn it into a reel. There you go. One idea, one story, and you've tripled the output. Don't overthink it. Just don't think, is this good enough? Our posts are just iterations of the next. No post is perfect. No post is going to do everything. I would just start to get in this habit of just documenting, sharing, get in the habit of putting your tripod on, getting your camera rolling, just as you're doing what you're doing. And, then we don't have to force this, what am I going to say? You can just share what you are doing, what you have done this week, what has been in your mind, what's been in your thoughts, how are you feeling this week in the business? And actually, we often think about, we're told to be authentic and genuine in our content, and we're often left thinking, well, what the hell does that mean? But when we're documenting our business and just showing up and sharing what we're doing, there is no more genuine or authentic content than that. So just start by just sharing. So just today, like anyone who's listening to this today, just think like, right, what can I share from today that I can share with my audience? And it can literally just be a photo in stories and just sharing what you've been up to. And it can literally be as simple as that. You don't have to put it into everything, but, even just you in your emails, for example, go back to that list of your, all your stories that you've been stashing down. See if you can just open it with a story, just one line, like I was thinking this week about da-da-da-da-da, because often that just brings us in a warm, welcoming way, rather than just like, I've got this to sell. So, the more you can just add a little line of a story and just weave it through. It doesn't have to be in absolutely everything, but, the more that you can share your perspective, that's what's going to really make people connect and really make you stand out. The more you can weave it in, but it doesn't have to be all singing, all dancing, day in the life reels that are really complicated and complex. Start small, and as you get confident in documenting, just add something else in and add something else in. Just try, get inspiration, have a go, have a practice. We only get better at the stuff that we practice. So yeah, just go and have a try and see how you get on.
I was just thinking about the time. So Helen from Disco Kids, who I know listens to the podcast. So if you're listening, Helen, then hi. I always think about this time. If you're thinking, is this interesting enough for my customers? Then a couple of years ago, she had a post. It was like one of her most engaged posts ever. And she was basically like, I need a new vacuum cleaner for the unit. And to be fair, she did put a very cool picture of a disco Henry up as well, which was very cool. But it was like everybody just wanted to talk about what was the best Hoover. It was, I think that, like you say, you can really overthink it and think, right, I need to tell this big, life-changing story about overcoming adversity. And actually, well, yeah, what did you do? What do you make for lunch? Or, you know, like that kind of connection point. But that's really great advice. So thank you for that. And do you have any examples where you can say, oh, storytelling definitely led to more sales? Have you seen that yourself, either with the people you work with or over the years?
Yeah, totally. I was literally just talking in my membership yesterday about a reel that I had posted, and it was talking about a time when I got a phone thrown at my head by the founder of a big retail store. And, you know, I'd led on this reel with, you know, this story of having a phone thrown at my head. And I'd gone on to say about the different brands I'd worked with and stuff. And it literally had like 500,000 views, and it had like, I got nearly 2,000 followers just from that one reel alone. And it just goes to show that, you know, that storytelling, I find that a lot when I tell these stories from my marketing background and stuff, they really connect. And I know that people then go on to work with me because these stories people remember them, and people will often talk about these things more than if people don't remember when you've just given them top tips or whatever, how-tos and stuff like that. But these are the things that actually, they get a human reaction. And we know that 95% of purchase decisions are based on emotion. So the more you can add in emotion, and emotion is, you know, by default comes into our stories. If you can make people feel something, we know that there's a huge connection with actually converting those as well. And from clients that I've worked with, small business owners that I've worked with, when they have told stories, customer stories, for example, that kind of content is brilliant for conversion. For example, say somebody really struggles to find a pair of trousers that will fluctuate with their body throughout the month, for example.
Yeah.
And you know, this is a real problem in their life. They're struggling to be comfortable and feel good at work or whatever. And, you know, say, you know, a brand has this really great fit that actually combines that style, comfort, all of these great things. Actually showing that journey, this customer came to me, they were really struggling with this. I actually made this for them, or this was the collection that, you know, that I've created to solve exactly this kind of problem. And I can help you with this as well. It's almost like taking your reviews, which are kind of boring content just as they are, and turning them into stories. So you could even start there, like take one of your reviews and see if you can turn it into this transformation story for one of your customers. This is really great conversion stuff because people think like, oh, you know, that I have that problem, so maybe. So I've seen, you know, a lot of this kind of content working really well in terms of like conversion and bringing these little moments to life about, we often think, oh, we're just selling candles or dresses and we're not really solving a problem, or we're not really changing lives here. But you know what you actually are, because, you know, if someone feels really confident to, I don't know, show up at a wedding that they know their ex is going to be there, or to go to an important meeting, if you're going to feel confident, or, you know, maybe you're sort of like rediscovering yourself after having a baby or whatever it might be, reclaiming these little pockets of me time by lighting a candle and being able to lock the door in the bathroom for 5 minutes of the day. Actually, these kind of like stories that then you can create in people's minds, you can have this too. Actually, you know, brings your products to life in a much less salesy way. But I'm now thinking like, oh my God, I want that. I want that 10 minutes of me time on my own where I'm locked in the bathroom. And, you know, you putting people in that scenario. Now I can imagine myself using your product and the lifestyle around which they exist, because we don't want to just be talking about our products, but the products actually sit inside of a much bigger conversation, a much bigger context of the lifestyle that goes around them, right? What is that lifestyle and how can we tell stories within that? But yes, if you can show that transformation, and it really will help you convert and show how your products are really helping people on a deeper level than this is just a dress.
Yes. Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so much. This is a great message to close on. And do you want to tell everyone where they can find out more about you and your membership?
Yeah, absolutely. So come find me over on Instagram at Loudmouth Content or loudmouthcontent.com. And yes, I have a sort of monthly content marketing membership where I help small business owners with their content. So it's less chaotic, a bit more calm. So yes, if you'd like to find out more, come and give me a shout. And I'd love to help you out.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Shah, for sharing all of your golden insights. If you are a member of my membership group, Resilient Retail Club, then you will be enjoying a super practical hands-on workshop with Shah in the middle of June, all about using storytelling for sales in your business, where she's going to go into more detail about how you can apply it every day. If you want to join the membership, head over to resilientretailclub.com and you can sign up. If you have a moment to like and review the podcast, that would make a huge difference in terms of getting it out in front of more people. You can rate the podcast inside Apple Podcasts. You can also write a review there, and you can rate the podcast as well inside the Spotify app. And of course, if you like, follow or subscribe to the podcast, you'll be the first to know about each new episode when it comes out on a Thursday morning. I'll see you next week.